chord played note by note. And although we were breaking up the chords in the previous section, we were basically only tapping notes that sounded good against the chord. Now I want to get a little bit more specific, which is going to involve a little bit of talking about theory, but just hang in there for a minute because this is also going to help develop the concept of working each hand independently, which is going to be real important for the stuff we're doing later in the video. Now what we're going to do here is take 5 basic chord types: major, minor, dominant, diminished, and augmented. And we're going to play 7th arpeggios as opposed to just playing 1, 3, and 5. This way we can get more fingers and more notes into the picture. And when I say 1, 3, and 5, all I'm referring to is the degrees of the major scale. So let's take a look at a C major 7 arpeggio first. Now on the left hand you have your root, a C, then you have the 3rd, an E. In the right hand you have a G, the 5th, and a B, the 7th. Now if you were to play the C major 7 arpeggio in the traditional way, you'd play it all in the left hand like this, which you can see a little bit better on the left hand side of the screen. But we're going to break these arpeggios up into both hands just so we can get more fingers into the picture. So now let's take a look at a C minor 7 arpeggio, which you can play in a couple different ways. The first way, in the left hand you'll have your root here, your flat 3rd here, and in your right hand you'll have your 5th and your flat 7 here, and you can see those last 2 notes a little bit easier on the right hand side of the screen. Now you can also play this arpeggio like this. In the left hand you can play your root here and your flat 3rd here, and in the right hand it would be the same. You'd have your 5th and your flat 7th. Now let's take a look at a C dominant 7 arpeggio, where in the left hand you have your root, your 3rd, and in the right hand you have your 5th and a flat 7th. Now let's take a look at a C half diminished arpeggio, where in the left hand you have your root, your flat 3rd, and in the right hand you have a flat 5th and a flat 7th. Now let's take a look at a C fully diminished arpeggio, where in the left hand again we have our root here and our flat 3rd here, and in the right hand you have your flat 5th and a 6th. Now our last arpeggio is going to be a C augmented arpeggio, where in the left hand you'll have your root, your 3rd, and in the right hand you'll have your sharp 5 and a flat 7th. Now you can also experiment with some more complex chord types. For instance, you could take something like a C major 9 arpeggio, where in the left hand you'll have your root, your 3rd, and then in the right hand you'll have your 7th and your 9th degree, which is the same as the 2nd degree of the scale except an octave higher. Or you could take something like a C7 sharp 11 arpeggio, where in the left hand you'll have your root, your sharp 11, and your 11th degree is the same as the 4th degree except an octave higher, and in the right hand you'll have your flat 7 and your 3rd. Or you could take something like a C7 sus arpeggio, where in the left hand you'll have your root, your 3rd, and then in the right hand you'll have your flat 7 and your sus or 4th degree of the scale. Now there are a lot of different ways to finger these arpeggios, and most of the patterns I've chosen are easy to visualize because most of them start with a root. The idea here is to get familiar with the many different fingering possibilities for the different chord types and the position of the arpeggio patterns in relation to the root of the chord. So now I'm going to give you an example of these arpeggio hammer-ons over a 2-chord progression. This pattern will go from an A minor 7 to an F major 7, and I'll play this with a triplet feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's take a look at what we have here. This is basically all hammer-ons. We'll start in the left hand with a hammer of an A, and then a hammer of an E, and then in the right hand we've got a hammer of a G, and a hammer of a C. And then you just go back down. So that would be like this. Now, over the F major, we start in the left hand with a hammer of an F, then a hammer of a C, and then in the right hand we've got a hammer of an E, and a hammer of an A, and then you just go back down, and that would be like this. So let's try this real slow with the click. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can also do this with pull-offs, and that would be like this. You start off with the hammer-ons, A, E, G, C, and on the way down, instead of doing this, you're going to do a pull-off on the G, like that. And then over the F major, you start off with your hammer-ons, F, C, E, A, and on the way down, instead of doing this, you're going to do a pull-off on the E, like that. So let's do this again with a click. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also try different fingerings and mixing up the notes of the arpeggios. For instance, instead of playing this arpeggio like this, 1, 5, 7, 3, you can mix the notes up by dropping that A an octave down here and playing it like this, 1, 5, 3, 7. Now you can also do some slides in the right hand like this. Alright, so now let's take a 4-chord sequence and expand the harmony a little bit. For this example, I'm going to hold down the root of the chord with my left hand, and we're going to go from an A minor 7 to G major 7 to F major 7 to E minor 7. And I'll play the same kind of arpeggio patterns up on top with my right hand. This will be in 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3. The next thing I'd like to add into the picture are double stops. So let me give you a quick example of how those can be used. 1, 2, 3, 4. A double stop is simply playing two notes at the same time to create some harmony. Now combined with the left hand, you can actually create chords by playing the root and the double stop together. So now I'd like to start by giving you a few examples of some double stops over three basic chord types: major, minor, and dominant. Now these examples are all going to be in the key of C. I'm going to hold down the root here in my left hand and then play the double stop in my right hand. And the combination of the root and the double stop together will form the key notes of each chord. Here are some double stop possibilities for C major. I'm going to hold down the root here, but keep in mind you also have a root here. And we're going to be playing most of the double stops in this area, so it's actually easier to visualize this root here and then playing the whole chord like this. So let's take some examples in C major now. Our first examples, we have C in the root, and we have E the third and G the fifth to form a simple C major chord. Now our second example, we're going to keep C in the root, add an E the third, and then an A the sixth to form or imply a C6 chord. Keep in mind you can also visualize your root here and play the whole chord like this. Now, our third example in C major, we're going to go back to our root here. We're going to add an E, the third, and then a B, the seventh, and form or imply a C major 7 chord. Now let's move to C minor. We'll keep our root here. In our first example, we'll take an E flat, the flat third, and a G to form a simple C minor chord. In our second example, we're going to take C again in the root. We'll take that E flat again, the flat third, and then a B flat, the flat seventh, to imply a C minor 7 chord. Keep in mind you can also play the whole chord like this. In our third example in C minor, we'll go back to our root, and we'll take a D, the second or the 9th degree of the scale, and then a B flat, the flat seventh, and imply a C minor 9 type chord. Now let's look at C dominant or C7. Keep our root here. In our first example, we'll take an E, the third, and a B flat, the flat seventh, and we'll imply a simple C7 chord. Now in our second example, we're also going to imply a simple C7 chord, but instead of the third, we'll have the fifth here. We'll have a C in the root, fifth, the G, and a B flat, the flat seventh, like that. In our last example, we'll take C in the root, we'll take an F, the sus, or the 4th degree, and then a B flat, the flat seventh, to imply a C7 sus type sound. You could also play that like this, the whole chord. Now these are only a few of the double stop options. You might want to take some time out to work out some other possibilities on your own. And I also like to mention, and this may be obvious, that these patterns are all movable on the neck, so you can play them in any key. For instance, if you're playing in C major, you can move that whole thing up 2 frets to the key of D major. So just keep these patterns in mind as we move throughout the different tonalities. Now this next example, let's take a 2-chord sequence moving from E minor 7 to D major, and I'll play that with a click. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's take a look at what we're doing here. In the left hand, over the E minor 7 chord, we're just going to be going back and forth between an E and a B, like that. And then for the D major chord, we drop it down 2 frets, and we'll be going back and forth between a D and an A, like that. Now to make up the E minor 7 chord in the right hand, we'll do a double stop of D and G, like that. And then for the D major chord, we'll do a double stop of D and A, like that. So let's play this again.